Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kamali Rose, joined today by Kwame Norval from Raise Fist Media. Thank you so much for being here with us, Kwame. Appreciate you. And today we're going to be talking about this is a pivotal moment on the left. The fight for 15 is going on right now, and this is what I believe to be the last chance that we're going to have under the Biden administration to enact a $15 minimum wage. And honestly, if they do not pass this $15 minimum wage, I believe that this is going to spell doom for the Democratic Party in 2022 and 2024, which would, give rise to a Republican control of the House, the Senate, and the White House by 2024, which means we could go sharply in the opposite direction just 4 years from now. So this could be the last chance that we have at enacting a $15 minimum wage, not just for the next 2 or 4 years, but for the next decade potentially. So this is a really crucial fight, and the fight is still happening. If you only watch mainstream media, you wouldn't really know that this fight was still going on. According to mainstream media outlets, it's as if it's already over and there's nothing left to be done. But the reality is there is one last ditch effort that we can rely on, and that's for the bill has already passed. A bill was passed through the House of Representatives that included a $15 minimum wage. When the bill arrived in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, leader of the Democrats, took out the $15 minimum wage provision out of the bill and put that forth. So in order to attempt to get a $15 minimum wage put back into that bill, Bernie Sanders attempted to pass an amendment to get an amendment added to the bill. That failed. So now the bill without a $15 minimum wage goes back to the House of Representatives to be voted on one last time. That vote is expected to happen tomorrow, Wednesday. And so the only chance that we have left in order to enact a $15 minimum wage anytime in the near future is to have a block of progressives in the House of Representatives say that they refuse to vote in favor of any bill that does not include a $15 minimum wage, which would force it to go back to the Senate and to have them add that back in through the Senate and to go through the process once more. Now that can happen pretty much the same day, the next day. It's not going to be a long delay. If they do this, it doesn't have to be a long delay. And any delay that happens would be the fault of the people that are refusing to help people in the middle of this crisis. And so what we would like to talk about today is Kshama Sawant, a city council person from Seattle, Washington, who is she is a socialist city council person, and she in Seattle, Washington, for those that aren't familiar, was the first major city in the United States to pass a $15 minimum wage. They actually have a $15 minimum wage enacted. Their $15 minimum wage took 7 years to ramp up to a $15 minimum wage, and it's now in 2021. It's now official. They do have a 2021. They do have a $15 minimum wage. It is in fact actually a $16.69 minimum wage, but for larger employers, and then for smaller employers, they're allowed to do $15 if they cover up to $1.69 additionally in healthcare benefits. So it's even more than what it sounds like at face value. It's actually closer to a $17 minimum wage that they have. And so she was on the Bad Faith podcast with Brianna Joy Gray and Virgil Texas. And this is a person who was instrumental in the fight for 15. And in that, that win in Seattle caused ripple effects around the nation, and has been part of the reason why other cities and states have been able to enact $15 minimum wages. It really started that in motion. So I think that she is a really important person to hear from on this fight. And so let's take a listen. I'm going to play a couple of clips from this interview that she gave on Bad Faith podcast, and because I think that what she was talking about is really crucial, and it cuts right to the heart of the strategy that we need to be employing if we're serious about making this happen. So let's take a listen to this clip. I have 2 clips I want to play. I might just play them right back to back, and then we'll come back and we'll do our discussion. We'll take comments. So please, if you're here, hit the like button, subscribe, share this out, and also leave your thoughts in the comments. And we will get to all, we'll get to all of those. All right. So love to hear from everyone on their feelings on this. If $15 minimum wage is something that would impact you or anyone that please feel free to chime in and give us your thoughts on that. And we'll talk about it both in this specific context and hopefully in a broader context of the importance of a $15 minimum wage. All right, so here we go. Let's take a listen to this, and then we'll come back and discuss.
And then you have the progressives, especially the squad. You have, and of course you have Bernie Sanders, who I believe are genuinely trying to do something for the people that they represent, ordinary people, working people, the marginalized. But the catch is in the question of how are they actually going to challenge the democratic establishment. And I think in terms of what you said about people pushing back against us, saying, well, now is not the right time, there'll be another bite at the apple. Well, remember what they were saying when we were arguing, that when a section of the left was saying, yes, absolutely, there is an opportunity, instead of just voting for Pelosi as speaker, actually the squad should withhold the vote and use it as a moment to build real pressure for Medicare for all. But what we said, and at least what Socialist Alternative said, was that it's not just as some sort of drama, or sort of meaningless political theater, but to actually use the force the vote tactic in the context of helping to build mass rallies and conferences around Medicare for all. But at that time, AOC and also sections of DSA, they said that, well, this is not the moment to use your political capital. And in fact, I remember AOC in her response to force the vote, and I think she genuinely meant this. She said, instead of this, we should fight for something winnable, which is $15 an hour. Well, here we are talking about $15 an hour. And again, Biden, Harris, Schumer, Pelosi, all the stalwarts, big business stalwarts of the party, are throwing excuse after excuse. It's the parliamentarian, it's the rules, it's the decorum, it's Joe Manchin. So I think what we have to point to is sort of the endless logic of making excuses for the democratic establishment. So today it's this excuse, tomorrow it's another excuse. Yesterday it was Medicare for all, today it's $15 an hour. This is a failed strategy. I think that's what we need to point out. It's not so much about whether AOC is genuine or not. The question is the strategy of not being willing to go into open combat against the establishment, is that working or not? And it's clearly not working. And of course, right now we are talking about what the squad should do. And I hope they're having a meeting right now about how they're going to withhold their vote and reject the gaslighting against them that they are somehow holding anything up. They are not holding anything up. It's big business Democrats and the Republicans who are holding things up for anything for working people. And I hope that they're having that strategy discussion this weekend. And no doubt millions of people, including me, we will back them up if they show that political courage. But this question should have been, the strategy question doesn't come at the last second. It comes from the very beginning. Like from the very beginning, what is your strategy? So in other words, weeks ago, we were saying, Socialist Alternative was saying that actually the squad and the progressives, what they should be doing is putting full frontal pressure on Manchin, Sinema, and also Biden and Schumer and Harris by holding rallies in West Virginia, in Arizona, in Georgia. These states are key states. Obviously, West Virginia and Arizona, because Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are from there. But Georgia is important too. The Black working class vote in Georgia was mobilized to a historic degree on the promise that you vote for the Democrats, we've got your back. Well, they don't have your back. So mobilize the millions of people who will stand with you. I think that's where the crux of the question lies. The left inside the Democratic Party, the squad needs to use that strategy.
Okay, so that's the first clip that I want to play from Kshama Sawant. There's a ton that she said there that I want to get to, but before we get to that, let me just play one other clip. It's about another minute or two of her just continuing to talk about this strategy in the importance of the strategy, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss. Okay, so one sec while I just pull that up here. All right.
We should expect, when working people fight for their needs in this deeply unjust system, and especially if we succeed in building movements and on top of that winning victories, we should expect them to retaliate against us. So that's no different whether it's Seattle or Washington, D.C. for a federal $15 minimum wage. And the only way we were able to win in Seattle and make Seattle the first major city was because we used what I would call a socialist strategy. And that was a strategy of being very clear from day one that the Democrats on the city council are not your friends, and your job is not to try and make negotiations with them. So, in other words, I mean, and this is an important distinction. It's between the squad and somebody like Chuck Schumer or Joe Manchin, in the sense that the squad genuinely don't represent big business interests. Big business is not under any illusions that they represent them. But the point is, it's not enough. It doesn't matter how genuine you are. It's not enough to be genuinely for working people, genuinely support and write op-eds and tweet out about Medicare for all, $15 an hour. When you have that position, you have to do a little bit more. And that little bit more is what's decisive in whether you win or lose. And that little bit more is what takes the most courage, and it also takes political organizing. It takes your own movement. You need your own movement with you, which is to put a spotlight on all the Democrats who are betraying working people's interest in a way that they will absolutely not appreciate. They will attack you. They will say you're not being nice. The Democrats on the city council say all kinds of things about me, about how I'm not a nice person, how I'm odious. But I think, odious. Yeah. Even the Seattle Times said that about me, that I'm odious.
It's such like a Dickensian thing to say.
It does. And that's you're exactly right. It's not like 21st century in one of the metropolitan areas in the Western world,
All right, so I let it play out a little bit longer than I was intending to, just because I thought that was funny at the end with the odious nonsense, because this is how like pretentious these people are, to say you're odious, it just sounds so damn Dickensian, as Bree pointed out there. But yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there from Kshama Sawant, and just sort of starting from the end there and working backwards. I think that, for one, she talks about deploying a socialist strategy, right? The socialist strategy was to recognize that, listen, the Democratic Party they are not your friends. All right. These people are not our friends. They are a part of the machine that has been working against us. All right. This two-party duopoly, they're two sides of the same coin, and they are absolutely working in conjunction with one another. And if you're going to enact progressive legislation, you can't do it while trying to play patty cake with the establishment Democrats. These people are not dumb. We act like they're like they're weak and they're idiots. But if you really, the way that I look at it is that they're actually, they're not just like, they don't just lose all the time. No, they're winning. What they want is to keep us down and to allow these right-wing, policies to continue to exist. And they're working in conjunction with their corporate donors and the right wing and their corporate donors in order to hold the masses of people down, right? So if we're going to get real on, in left movements about trying to to overcome these people and to enact progressive policy, we can't act like we can do it while negotiating with the Democratic Party and trying to do this backroom deals and that sort of backroom dealing, because that's what the Democratic Party has been, surviving off of for, from time immemorial. And so we're not going to beat them at their own game. What we have that is special, and the power that we have is in our collective power. And she talked about that, like we have to, these progressives, the squad, they have all these people behind them. They got millions of people standing behind them right now, ready to go to bat for this cause right now. And all we're just saying like just let us at them, just let us do our thing. We are ready. And Kshama Sawant, she talked about having a strategy, right? And the crucial issue of like, it can't just be about, do you support this policy, right? Because the reality is, yeah, we trust that they support these policies, right? I do not think, if you believe that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ro Khanna are all the same thing, then you're absurd. There's no nuance there. You're just wrong. You're flat out wrong. These people absolutely have different motivations. They're not sellouts. I don't think they haven't sold out to anyone. We funded their campaign. They're not taking money. All of a sudden, AOC and Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal and Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, these people didn't suddenly start taking corporate money and selling out to big business interests. That's not what they did. They're not representing big business interests, like Kshama Sawant said. That's clear. But the problem is, it's not enough to just simply go out there and say that you support these and to tweet about it or write op-eds about it. Like, that stuff is all nice and great, good job. But there has to be a serious strategy behind the policies that you say you support, and you have to make that clear to people, right? And you have to show that you have this. You got to be willing to go into, actually called it, open combat with the Democratic establishment and really stick your neck out there, knowing that they're going to retaliate against you and that they're going to say bad things, and they're going to smear you, and they're going to try to say things like, oh, the progressives are delaying the bill and they're stopping people from getting it. And so, but you have to be willing to go out there and do that, and to win the political fight, and to have that political fight, because you have the people, online, there's a ton of support for the progressive movement, and we will absolutely do what we have to do to back them up on this, and to say, no, you're not going to lie and play dirty politics with the politicians that are actually trying to fight for us. We'll have your back. You have our backs. We'll have yours. But instead of doing that, they're trying to play this game, and it's a failed strategy. And I honestly believe that this is the final test. And if they don't do it now, I just don't believe they're any iteration of these progressives is going to understand and start to know how to use this a more combative strategy. Honestly, the longer that they stay in Congress, the less likely I feel like they are to be able to push back against the Democratic establishment. The longer you're there, the more you see these people as your friends and your colleagues, and it becomes harder and harder to push back against them. So, I just think that, Kshama talked about how, and you can jump in anytime you want, Kwame. You got something you want to jump in?
They can't just support these things anymore. Supporting's easy. Supporting's obvious. Supporting's the standard. Supporting's a starting place. You have to be willing to fight for it. You have to be willing to put your all on the line for it. Like, if you don't get reelected, so what? If you can make the great change that we sent y'all there to do, then that's what you went there to do. You can't, this is the issue. This shouldn't be a career aspiration for people. It's not a goal of staying in as long as you want and making it a career. Your goal when you take these jobs is to go make a change, to go represent the people. Period. It's not a career aspiration. If you got to piss people off, if you have to make enemies, then do so. The Republican Party has been kicking our ass because they're willing to fight dirty. They're willing to fight tooth and nail because they die hard believe this shit. So do we die hard believe this shit? Because I don't see them fighting tooth and nail the same way. And that's my issue with this.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, the type of people that you want to be politicians are the kind of people that don't want to be politicians. That's who I want, and that's what I saw these people as. That's what the hope that I saw in these people was they feel it feels like these are people like us, folks, just everyday folks like us that are sick and tired and fed up with the BS and know that enough is enough, and they're ready to do something about it at whatever cost, and that they're not career politicians. That was the whole thing about getting this squad elected. Listen, I was there from the start, pushing for the squad to be elected, donating, volunteering, phone banking, all of that. I was a member of the Justice Democrats, from day one, from the day that they announced that the Justice Democrats existed. That was the first day I made a donation to the Justice Democrats. Literally the day that Cenk Uygur and Kyle Kalinske announced it as the co-founders of that organization. I began donating, began supporting these candidates, and went all in on this cause. And the point that, part of it was that these people were not career politicians, and we're not people that were just going to go in there to just, go along to get along and just get in there to try to, advance, and be about, oh, well, I just, I need to stay here forever and I just need to have power for no reason at all. We're just going to hold power. And the thing was, does anyone believe that the strategy is going to be that we have to get, are we waiting until there are literally there are 435 members of Congress, so you need 218 in order to to have a majority in the Congress, right? Are they waiting until we have 200? We have to elect 218 progressives into there, and do we have to have every single person that is a Democrat be a progressive before we can do? Or are they saying that we have to have, say, the majority of the Democrats, right? If you even want to say that, then you're talking about something like 110 people, right? At the rate that we're going, getting 2 or 3 of these progressives into office each year, we'd have to get two. If we go every 2 years, we get two more of these people added into there, right? On average, right? Every 2 years, say 2 or 3 of these people every 2 years that we have an election. Then you're talking about, something that would take literally just to get 100 of them, 110 of them. You're talking about 50, you're talking about 50 years of 50 years, and then hoping that 50 years from now, AOC is still, alive and ticking and just as progressive as she is today.
We have to hope they don't pull a cinema on us and come out saying one thing, and then as soon as they get in there, just completely fucking flip flop, So like, and it's very easy for it to happen. It's very easy for it to happen. So like they're playing this long game. I don't know if it's a long game. Like people need help now, and there's certain things that you could maybe say we could play the long game on. One, that when $15 is not enough right now. One, that we're doing stuff that's going to take 5 years or longer to go in effect. Like you can't play the long game to start doing that. So in 4 years from now, we're going to try, and 2 years from now, 4 years from now, we're going to try and fight so that 5 years from then we can get $15 minimum wage.
Exactly. By the time that exactly, and we're still talking about $15. We've been talking about $15 minimum wage since 2012 in New York. We're still out here 9 years later talking about a $15 minimum wage. By 2025, $15 is going to be equivalent to what $13.80 is today, right? And so by the time that we're talking about finally enacting this stuff, like we don't have the time to wait, right? And you have a unique political moment that they say, what's that famous quote? Like I think it's Milton Friedman, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? And like this is them letting a good crisis go to waste. It's you have a unique situation where people are angry, they are behind you, they are feeling the pain economically, just socially with being isolated, and people are feeling that pain. It's why I think that we saw that mass movement of protests, Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd protests over the summer. I don't think it was just the outrage over the police brutality that's been going on as long as we can remember in this country. I think that what was unique is that it was all of that, plus people were all stuck at home and out of work and angry about this, right? And feeling the economic pain as well. And so people are struggling right now. This is a time when, essential workers are being asked to risk their lives every day to go out there in the middle of a pandemic, to be on the front lines of this. And we're not even willing to go to bat for them. These progressives in Congress, the squad is not willing to go to bat for these people and to stick their necks out there a little bit. And Kshama Sawant was saying, like, you got to be willing to take on some of the ire of the Democratic Party and some of the political blowback that's going to happen from that. But that you have history on your side. That you have the people on your side, and you should absolutely use that to advance this movement. And Kshama Sawant was saying the strategy should have been from the beginning, from the outset. And what the socialist alternative was saying from the outset was that you gotta, and this is what we were talking about since back at Force the Vote, right? We were saying when we said back in January, December, January, we were pushing this movement. You check our channel, check out the content that we did on the channel back then. We were pushing this movement of forcing a vote on Medicare for all, and a little bit more. We wanted more than just that vote. But what she was saying was that it was about starting to, it wasn't just some performative thing. And we were saying from even back then, it's not just about being performative or anything like that. It's about beginning to build a mass movement behind you, millions of people coming out in rallies and in a mass movement around the country, where you go out there and you rally people together and say, listen, this is, show that you have the masses of people behind you, right? Even people talk about FDR and the FDR presidency, and the thing was that it wasn't just that like FDR was some progressive. He wasn't. He was much closer to being like a wealthy establishment, corporate Democrat type. But he had the pressure of the mass movements of the socialist movement, the communist movement, and the trade unions, constantly pressuring and applying pressure to him. And so he knew he had to bend to the will of that mass movement. So it wasn't just FDR being some progressive, socialist or something like that. No, he wasn't in the least. This guy was a capitalist, but he went to the capitalists and he said, listen, it's these people are ready, and they're ready to bring the pitchforks out. So I'm the only thing standing between you and the pitchforks. And so you're gonna have to give up something, to corporate America. You're gonna have to give up something if you want me to be able to hold off these people. And what did they do? They were able to put up, the FDR enacted a 96%, I think it's 94%. It was like in mid 90s, 94%, I believe, marginal tax rate. He proposed a 100% tax rate. Every dollar somebody made over what would it be equivalent of about $2 million today, every dollar over that would have been taxed at 100%, right? So all these billionaires that made hundreds of billions of dollars more, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, they wouldn't be a dime richer throughout this pandemic. And we could have enacted that stuff and then use that to pay for whatever, subsidizing or whatever the heck we need to do. But the reality is that a $15 minimum wage, it doesn't hurt the federal government, right? It doesn't or this idea that it hurts the economies. Like Seattle is an example of it. They enacted the $15 minimum wage. It happens gradually over time, and businesses are able to react to it over time and to build up to it. And businesses haven't shut down in Seattle. The economy is still doing just fine. They're doing great in Seattle. Workers are happier. Workers are getting paid what they deserve. And so, yeah, I think that this has been a really telling moment. And I think it says a lot about what to expect out of these progressives moving forward. I don't think that they have a coherent, cohesive strategy. And I don't think that they are ready for this moment and ready to, and I just don't think that they're going to be able to be successful on anything if they're not able to be successful on this fight, which is just, it seems so clear to me that this is the fight for them to be having.
I already told you what I predicted, unfortunately, and I hope I'm not right, but I get that feeling that they're going to drop the ball on this, and then when the Republicans take control, they're going to come out with some form of a watered-down minimum wage or some bullshit form. They're going to take the narrative on it, they're going to take the win on it, and the people are going to love them for it. It's what's going to happen. I can see the writing is on the wall. If they don't seize this moment right now for this, they are going to, mark my words. I'm going to pull a jank here, and you mark this, record this video, holla at me later and remind me I said this shit. When this happens, that's what's going to happen. And they're going to fumble this, because it just seems so obvious. What are the reasons not to? We can go through. We'll break them all down for you. Why? It's not true. It'll raise the price on things like automation. Automation's already happening, fam. Automation is going to happen. That is why it's even more crucial for us to do things like this to save the economy prior to it, for starters. Secondly, McDonald's is already automating. And they also bumped up to a $15 wage as a company. So it makes even less sense for you to be against it. And their prices aren't jumping that high. You look at other places, other countries that pay better than we do, and their prices are on par to ours.
Yeah, I think in Denmark, the Big Mac is like $1 more, but the workers get paid $8 more per hour. Yeah. They got like a $22 minimum wage there in Denmark, and for McDonald's they have a $22 minimum wage versus.
If we are all making $8 more an hour, you can afford that dollar difference. You can ball out and raise it $2. You gonna be mad? It doesn't, and it's the money. When people have more money, they spend more money. We're not like the rich. We're not like Bezos. When we have the money, we spend the money. So it will help the economy if you put more money into people's hands.
Absolutely. And this is an argument that people often make, and I've seen made, and when we're hoping to do a more general, broader, video and discussion about the $15 minimum wage and debunking all of the arguments against this, 15. And I think $15 was the compromise. Let's be real. $15 an hour is a compromise position. And I hate how the Democrats always start from a compromise position. So compromise. We should have been, but we started talking about $15 minimum wage and enacting it over a 5-year period back in 2016 at the latest, you want to say, for national campaigns that we were talking about, but really back to 2012 Why is it not moving beyond that? Why is the discussion not moving beyond 15 to $20 an hour? In Seattle, they didn't just move it up to, $15 an hour, but they also tied it to inflation from that point forward, right? So from here on out, Seattle at least has it tied to inflation as well. And we really should be talking about, well, what would the minimum wage be today if it just simply kept up with inflation? And for that, it's something closer to about $22, almost $23 an hour for a minimum wage if it were to have just kept up with inflation since the 1960s. So,
what if we take a look at the way that productivity has increased as technology has increased? Like people are producing more,
absolutely,
way more. So like, even if we went along that line, like there's no way that you slice it where $15 is even acceptable. So we started at a compromise, fuck around and find out, it's talking about like that next step. Like we're past that. This was we started at the compromise. So if y'all don't do this, I don't know. I can't save y'all. I know that damn much. I don't know anyone that'll be able to save y'all because they're going to get massacred. They're going to get massacred.
This will absolutely have ripple effects if they lose this fight. And all signs point to. I'll show you some of the tweets. I mean, I've been closely monitoring the squad's Twitter accounts, their social media, watching to see if anything they come out do anything like a press conference. They should have been holding press conferences. Mm-hmm. This is absurd. Joe Biden has been in power for now, what is it, like over 50 days now? Like, we've had well over a month. We knew this bill was on its way. It should have, the Democrats promised people $2,000 checks immediately, back when during the Georgia runoffs. This bill was supposed to happen 2 months ago. Why did the Democrats wait until literally a week before the unemployment benefits expire to finally get ready to pass this bill? They could have passed this thing. They could have been working on this thing a month ago, and longer. So why wait until a week out and to then say, to then use this artificial excuse of, oh no, we have to do it now, because if we don't do it now, people's unemployment benefits are going to expire. Yeah, we knew that months ago. We knew that those unemployment benefits were going to expire. Then we should have been, working on this well before that. The squad should have been coming out there and building up this strategy and putting together a mass movement of people behind them. Use the people. Let us help you. Let us have your back, and building that, from back in January. But instead, they allowed the Democratic Party to set the pace and set the tone and set the narrative on this. And now they come out looking, and having to, play from on their back foot, sort of throw from on their back foot and play defensively and be backed into a corner on this. And then you can't allow them to frame it as if you're the one causing the delay. You're saying we are delaying this because we want more for people. They are the ones that are willing to risk delaying it because they want less, right? It's not your fault that it's being delayed. It's the fault of the people and the politicians, the corporate-backed politicians that want to represent their donors and not their constituents, that are preventing people from getting a literally just like barely above $15 an hour in this country is pretty much to put you just above poverty level, right? So it puts you just above poverty level if you're working full time, 40 hours a week, right? So we're talking about just $7.25 an hour. That works out to about just over $15,000 a year. All right. Before taxes. After taxes, you're talking about something like $10,000 a year at $7.25. You tell me, how can you raise a family on $10,000 a year? Tell me who can survive. And the thing is, like, to all of these politicians that are, complicit in this, and every single one of them are in Congress. Every single one of them are. Every Republican, every Democrat, all of them are complicit in this. So it's not to say that they're great and the squad is somehow worse than them. No, but the squad has a unique power here. But the thing is that these people that are telling the rest of America to go and survive on a $7.25 wage, while they're being paid $85 an hour. So we're paying these people $85 an hour. Every congressperson is paid $85 an hour to tell the rest of us that we don't deserve a $15 an hour minimum wage. That's absurd. They should have to live on a $7.25 minimum wage. Why don't they live on the minimum wage? I guarantee, put Congress on the minimum wage and see if we don't have people, see if you don't have people that are fighting to raise the minimum wage all of a sudden. See if they wouldn't have a sense of urgency if they were making $7.25 an hour in the middle of a pandemic. All right. See if they wouldn't have some different sense of urgency then. So, it's really, that's rather unfortunate that don't have, do not seem to have the sense of urgency that they went into Congress with, that we elected them for. We are the ones that put these people there, and it's so frustrating, and it honestly has hurt me in a lot, because it feels like we failed, not just like they're failing, but it's us as well for not recognizing this. And this is a mistake that I made that I will not make moving forward, is in not recognizing that it's not just about policy. It's not just about saying you nominally support something. That's not enough. You have to tell me, what is your strategy for actually enacting this policy? What are you going to do? And if your strategy as a progressive, as a left winger, as someone on the left, if your strategy does not include a mass movement of people behind you and mobilizing a mass movement of people behind you, then I don't want to hear about it. Your strategy is what I consider to be a failing strategy. If you're not talking about using the masses of people, because that's the only power that we have on the left. That's where all of our power lies, is in the collective power of the people. And so we must be using that collective power of the people. And if you do not intend to use that, and you do not intend to use a mass movement of people behind you, then I'm sorry, but whatever you're intending to do, it will fail. With all your good intentions, as well intentioned as you might be, it will ultimately fail.
And we got to start making these people fear for their jobs, like on some real shit. Like that cinema shit really still sticks with me and hurts me and makes I take that shit personally. That's so deeply disrespectful, especially when you look and you pull up the tweets of her years ago talking about fighting for a $15 minimum wage and how we need to have a $15 minimum wage. If you do shit like that, that tweet of her a couple years ago and her thumbing down the $15 minimum wage should be flooded under every post on her official Twitter page for now until she gets the hell out of office. She needs to fear for her job every day. She needs to know that we're going to primary her, that we're going to get her the hell out of there. And they all need to. They're too comfy, because they're for you to go against your constituents like that, when so many people overwhelmingly in her own area would be affected. The people she represents would be affected by this? No, absolutely not. These people cannot walk around while we are out here struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, and worrying about how we're going to put food on our tables and take care of our families. These people cannot be walking around here not having those same fears. So I hope that when she sees that we're going to kick her ass the hell out of there, I hope that she worries about what she's going to do next, because that's the way we're all living now in the regular world. And
how many of you have a 6-year contract? Literally a senator, when they get elected, it's essentially they are signing $1 million contract. All right. They get 6 years. Okay. When you elect a senator, they get 6 years at $175,000 a year, $174,000 a year. Do the math out. All right. You're talking about $1 million. It's more than $1 million. All right. We are giving these people $1 million contract to go and do this, do what we tell you, what we sent you there to do. All right. So these people, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable that these millionaires are turning around and spitting in the face of working class people in the middle of a pandemic and economic depression, or at the very least, an economic recession, right? Unlike anything that we've seen, since the Great Depression. All right. And this is, Kwame mentioned earlier about wages and keeping up within productivity. And so, I just wanted to show this graph, and this is a graph. I'll find you the source on this. I'm sorry. I apologize for not having the source outright. This was posted on the United Steelworkers blog, but it was originally, this graph is from the Economic Policy Institute, all right, which we've used on the show before. They are a reputable policy institute that researches, they research economic policy and put together reports like this, all right. So they did this study, and they looked at what is the what would the minimum wage be if it had kept up with the growing economy. And this is what, and I just want you to see here, as the you can see here the from 1950, right? So when they started to track this, right, from around in the 50s, right? This is the 50s is when we had that sort of we still had the 90% marginal tax rate in the 50s, right? This was when we had the highest tax rate in the United States. We were taxing people, the wealthiest people. We were taxing the rich, right? We were using that money to help fund social services. This was after the 30s, after FDR, the Roaring 20s, then the depression of the 30s, and then FDR comes in. He enacts these these different social programs through the pressure of socialists, communists, and the trade unions, the labor unions. He enacts these policies and raises taxes on the wealthy. And all that while, right, you can see from 1950 till 1970, you see that wages, the red line is the wages, right? The red line is the wages here. The blue line is if wages had, the red line is the actual minimum wage, and the blue line is what the wage would be like if it had grown with productivity, right? And you can see that in the dark blue line. And so you can see that from 1950 to 1970, those things were lockstep. Wages matched productivity, right? So wages were keeping up with productivity from 1950 to 1970. 1968, something happens. Well, one, I'll tell you what happens. It was the midst of the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King is assassinated while trying to organize a poor people's campaign that was fighting for economic issues like this. All right. So they start to destroy the civil rights movement, by assassinating the leaders of that movement, and also, we're approaching like Reagan era, politics here, and so 1968, there is a sharp break with this, and all of a sudden, wages stop keeping up with productivity. And so from 1970 onward, you can see that wages, the real wages in 1968 were actually higher than the what they call the actual minimum wage. It's like, how much can you buy with the stuff that you have? It's actually lower now than it was in 1968. So the actual minimum wage has truly decreased if you talk about keeping it in tied to inflation, right? So in 1968, it was $9.90 an hour it was equivalent to what $9.90 an hour would be today, right? But with all of inflation, all right? So it was $9.90 an hour. Now it's $7.25 an hour. All the while, and if it had just grown with the average wages of typical workers, they said it would be $11.62. If it had grown with productivity, if it had kept lockstep with productivity, we would have around a $20 minimum wage by 2017. It's obviously gone up, and that's where the $22, $23 number comes from. So we're able to buy less stuff than we were able to buy with the minimum wage. 50 years ago, so we've gone down. The real wages have declined in this country. All right. So I just wanted to highlight that. And I think that another way that you can look at this for the people out there that are like, $15 minimum wage, that's just, that's too much in certain places. $15 is different. $15 might work in Seattle, Washington, or Boston, Massachusetts, where I am, or Silicon Valley in California. But it's not appropriate for, rural, places in rural America, they'll name, or Alabama or Georgia. And I think that you have to ask yourself the question, what does that, what to you, how do you define what a living wage is for someone, right? And if we define it and we say people deserve a living wage, workers deserve a living wage, then one group, the National Low Income Housing Coalition, they put together a study, and they said, all right,
I am getting a daddy duty notice. Unfortunately, I got to slide up out of here, but thank y'all for having me. Let's line up again. I will put it on record right here on video. I'll be back. We will finish this minimum wage conversation. I promise y'all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that. All right, brother.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Catch you later. All right. So we'll just continue on. And so I just want to show you what, if you define you ask yourself the question, well, how should you define, what a living wage is in the country, right? Then this group, the National Low Income Housing Coalition, they put together the study, and they put it together in a really nice visual way for us that shows, well, how much would it cost in any state if you wanted to be able to afford a 2-bedroom rental unit without having to pay more than 30% of your wages, your income to rent. And that the 30% number is been studied in economics. And the reason that they use 30% is because they say, if you're paying more than 30% for your rent, then the odds is that you're not getting by comfortably at that point, right? It's not a comfortable living wage at that point. You're struggling. You're having to rob Peter to pay Paul, as they say. Deciding which bills to pay each month to keep things on, right? So it definitely varies, right? But the question is, well, how, what does that number look like around the country? And so they put together this map that I'll share here, that I've shared on the show a few times now. So if you watch the show enough, you've seen this map before. But this is a 2019 study. Represents the hourly wage that a full-time worker must earn working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, in order to afford the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom rental home without paying more than 30% of their income around the country. And as you can see, the lowest that we have here is in Arkansas is $14.26 in Arkansas. That's the lowest. So at the lowest, we're saying for in the most affordable state to live in, for the lowest cost of living would be to afford this housing is Arkansas. And even in Arkansas, the minimum wage in 2019, which again, 2 to 3% inflation, you're talking about, it's gone up from here, right? So you're talking about another 30 cents, 30 to 45 cents being added onto this since 2019. We're now in 2021 technically, so you're talking about another 60 to 90 cents being added to this. So $14.26 in Arkansas, $14.27 in West Virginia, $14.43 in Mississippi, the Kentucky $14.84, Alabama $14.92, and that's the only ones that are under $15. And this was in 2019. We're in 2021 again at just the rate of inflation being 2 to 3%. You're talking about 1% is 14 cents. Call it 2% is going to be about 28 cents or so, and 3% would be about 42 cents or so, and do that for 2 years, and you're talking about 80 some odd cents. So even at Arkansas, 80 cents more would put it over $15 an hour in 2021. So nowhere in the United States is $15 an hour a comfortable living wage. It just isn't. And so enough is enough. And this fight is it is a crucial one, and it hurts. It's a painful one to watch them fail on, because like I said, all signs point to the squad not doing what they need to be doing on this fight and not making it happen. So yeah, Massachusetts is $33.81 an hour minimum wage to afford a 2-bedroom rental. That's where I'm living at, and I got people in Massachusetts here that are arguing against a $15 minimum wage. We have a $15 minimum wage. We've passed $15 minimum wage legislation in Massachusetts. It will be enacted by 2023. And you still have people that are making arguments against that, and that's less than half of what would really be a living wage in the state. I'll just show you a couple of quick, before we go to comments. I'm just going to show you really quickly just a couple of the some tweets from what our Congress people are saying about this bill, what the progressives are saying. Here's Ro Khanna saying that. Oh, sorry, this is wrong one. Give me one sec. Sorry about that. So never, I won't even bother with that. I'll show you one. I'll show you one just to show you what one of the Justice Democrats, Pramila Jayapal, has been saying about what she tweeted out about this bill. She tweets out, and Pramila Jayapal says, "The American Rescue Plan," that's the name of this COVID relief bill, "is a bold relief package that puts money in people's pockets. Which part are you most excited about?" And then gives people the options of, why did they say it like I chose this? I did not choose this. But anywho, it says, which part are you most excited about? $1,400 survival checks, expanded UI assistance, $3,000 child tax credit, or more shots in arms, and you can see the response that she got, to limit it to this, to act as if people are excited about this, these things, the $1,400 survival checks. One, it was supposed to be $2,000 survival checks. Why are we talking about $1,400 2 months later? It was supposed to be $2,000 immediately. Expanded UI assistance. They didn't expand the UI assistance. They kept it the same that the Republicans have. It was $300 a week under Republicans, under Donald Trump's plan. It's $300 a week now. This is not expanded. It's gone down. Donald Trump, in his first COVID relief bill, gave us $600 a week. I don't care that it was Bernie Sanders that pushed for it. It was still, Donald Trump was the one that signed the bill, right? That he was the president. It was $600 a week. And then in his second one, it was $400 a week. Now you're talking about, the Democrats doing $300 a week, and they're calling that expanded UI assistance. It's BS. This $3,000 child tax credit is a 1-year plan. It is implemented for 1 year and then expires. The Democrats intend to try to renew it and have it extended for many years beyond that. But there's no indication that is going to be able to happen. So it's a 1 year, temporary child tax credit. All right, $3,000. We should have been talking about $2,000 a month for the duration of the pandemic. Instead, we're talking about a one-time $3,000 child tax credit, or more people getting vaccinated, as if that wasn't basically necessary. In other countries, they don't have the same concerns over vaccination that we have to have, because we are the highest rate of deaths in the entire world. We have about 4% of the world's population and about 24% of the deaths from COVID-19. Over half a million people in a year have died from COVID-19. In other countries, it's 100 times less than that. All right. It's even worse in some places. So, we need it more than anybody else, so the idea that they should somehow be applauded for, distributing a vaccine that, was publicly researched, it's just, and all that happened under the Donald Trump presidency, sadly, pathetically, as horrible as the job he did, still ain't managed to get there. But I think, you can see from the comments that that people responding to this, that people were just like, $15 an hour. Oh, if only there were progressives in Congress to force the vote. Someone's like, I'm excited to donate it. I'm excited about donating to whoever challenges you from the left and vote you the fuck out of office. This isn't bold, it's cowardice, and it ain't building back better. Fuck off. There's nothing to be excited about here. This is crumbs as you once again shovel money and power to the 1%. This is what is considered bold. Another giveaway to corporations with half-ass quote relief for even less than Trump gave. What a joke. The promise was $2,000 and the promise was unequivocal. Don't accept this. Fight for us. I like that we are $15 an hour. Oh yeah, well at least we got the 2,000 we were told about. No, that's right. That was changed after we won the Senate. At least it's better than anything the Republicans would have done. Still, I wish progressives had more say in this. So none of what they promised is helping, right? So people are pissed. The immediate $2,000 survival payments. Oh wait, so you can see how people responded to this. It was not pretty. And honestly, the poll was essentially ratioed in there because people are pissed, right? The people are pissed, and that's the sentiment that they know is out there. But they refuse to do anything about it. They refuse to listen to the people, listen to the very people that got them elected. They have turned their backs on us, and we have to recognize that it's because they're employing a failed strategy that will continue to fail as long as this is their plan, is to try to play nice with establishment Democrats to get in the good graces of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and somehow that's going to allow us to advance policy in this country. Is foolish. It's absolutely naive. It's childish. It's just ignorant of the reality that people are facing right now, and they lack any sense of urgency that they had going into Congress. These people have lost all the sense of urgency that they had. So, do we want to take some comments? Awesome. Whew. Sorry, y'all. I'm just going off on this because I'm just hurt. I'm hurt by what I'm seeing here, and I really do believe that this is a pivotal moment on the left, and really just a pivotal moment in the progressive movement, where it's an inflection point. After this, I just don't think that we're going to. I think that this is indicative of what's to come from here on out. If they can't win this fight, I don't think they're going to win any fight, and we're just going to keep on accepting whatever little scraps we get. What Up America says, Sawant is a national treasure. So happy that she's from my state and that she was able to beat Jeff Bezos and his millions of dollars against her. Yeah, the Amazon they literally lined up against Kshama Sawant in her reelection campaign and poured in millions of dollars to fight against her into a city council seat, to run against a city council. These elections are typically, you're talking about thousands of dollars being spent, tens of thousands of dollars is like a lot for a city council seat, right? You're talking about millions, a corporation coming in, because Amazon has headquarters in Seattle. And you're talking about a major corporation coming in and throwing millions of dollars behind to try to defeat her. And now they've funded, put millions of dollars behind a recall campaign to try to fight to have her recalled in Seattle. So this is what you have to be. This is what you have to do, and this is what you have to be willing to do, is to draw the ire of the Democratic establishment. We did not send you there. We did not send progressives there to go play ball with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. That's not what we sent you there for. We sent you there to fight to fight. And fighting means you might have to get punched in the mouth sometimes, right? When you fight, you might just have to get punched in the mouth. We need you to take a hit for us, right? And it's not, the sad thing is that it really isn't much of a political hit, really, right? It's in the mainstream media. The narrative will be they'll take a hit, a political hit in the mainstream media. They're not going to take a political hit with the public, with the people, right? We are behind them. We stand behind them on this. They will increase support. This is a popular policy. Even a recent poll had 61% across all voters, Republicans, Independents, Democrats. 61% support a $15 minimum wage hike. All right, so through budget reconciliation. So absolutely, this has the support of the people. So X says best rants on YouTube right here. Thank you, X. I appreciate that. X says, I listened to Kshama Sawant debate David Feldman last night on the David Feldman show. That's really cool. I think it's worth a listen. Really good debate. I wonder, was David Feldman doing his, David Feldman, I know him from his appearances on Michael Brooks' show. And he would always, he does this shtick where it's like, he's a comedian and he acts as if he's a right winger. And he'll argue as if he's like, or not even a right winger, sorry, like a conservative Democrat, actually. So he plays this character essentially where he's a conservative Democrat, and he actually is of the left, and he is a true, like leftist progressive. But what he does is he frames himself, he acts as if he's a conservative Democrat, essentially establishment Democrat, and he'll debate people from that position. So I wonder if he did that, and if she did that in the debate, and that would be awesome to watch. So I'll check that out definitely. So thank you so much for the heads up on that. Cryptician says, so many are missing out on this great discussion and analysis covering many of the most important points of things we need to do to gain more power and influence as progressives. Thank you so much, Cryptician. I really appreciate that. And we're trying to grow this platform and to spread the word. But unfortunately, as a leftist, it's already hard to grow, in left media. As a black leftist, black socialist, it becomes even harder. It's even more of an uphill battle with the YouTube algorithm. It's just always working against us. Whenever we publish a video about anything, it's constantly suppressed. People just don't see our content. If you don't share the video out, essentially people don't see it, sadly. So that's why we always ask people to, that like, subscribe, share. We're not just saying that, just to say it. We really do mean it. It's the only way we're going to ever grow this channel and help to get us, get this message out to more people, because I do believe that what we're doing here is important, and we are pushing, putting forward this important message. But unfortunately, due to the powers that be in these, in these massive corporate structures, our corporate overlords do not want the mass of people to hear this information, and so they suppress it at every chance they get. So Cryptician says radical democracy needs more exposure ASAP. Thank you so much, Cryptician. I really appreciate that. Shout out to Cryptician there. So thanks for saying that. X, yes, like, share, and subscribe. Absolutely, that's what we need, folks. So X says he's actually about 99% serious on his show. Okay, on his show. Okay, all right, cool. Thank you for clarifying. So yeah. All right, so that's cool. So he debated her on $15 minimum wage. So that's wild. So I really need to see that. I got to check that out. Or what, I don't know what was the debate. X, let me know. It was the debate on $15 minimum wage. I'll definitely check it out though and watch that debate for sure. Kshama Sawant is honestly, to me personally, she has renewed. I was giving up hope for electoral politics because of what has been going on with the squad ever since the Force the Vote movement. It honestly, that shook me to my core when I saw what happened there. And not just the squad, to be honest, but a lot of people in so-called progressive media, TYT, Majority Report, Sam Cedar, these Nomiki Khan's, these people that came out and were and fought against the movement, Ryan Grimm, like these people that I considered allies and really did consider allies of mine and respected. And when I saw the way that they treated that and ignored that fight, that was a real demoralizing moment for me. And so that it's been really hard to sort of get excited about electoral politics since then, because it just felt like, is it the system of electoral politics that ruins these people? Because I do believe that AOC and these people went in with the best intentions and were stronger and were ready to fight when they went in there. And then something happens to people when they make it into this machine. And maybe it's getting paid $175,000 a year and having the best healthcare and all that. You suddenly start to, to forget a little bit about the pain that you were feeling before and the pain that your constituents are feeling. So, Kshama Sawant, though, I mean, she is the only reason I still have faith in electoral politics. Is what she's done and what she continues to do is absolutely inspirational. And my goal is to have her on the show. I would, she's like the next person I would like to have on the show, because honestly, I just think I need some of that, inspiration personally in my life. And I just think that the message that she's delivering and her understanding of the strategy behind this, and I plan to look more into the Socialist Alternative. That's the group that she's affiliated with, is the Socialist Alternative, because they're a Marxist-Leninist organization, and they seem to have a stronger, clear-cut strategy than folks like, say, the Big Tent DSA, and they talked about that in her interview on Bad Faith. The Big Tent sort of DSA, Big Tent socialism, where they're like, oh, we'll take all different types of socialists in here. I think that we need more coherent, cohesive strategy laid out from the beginning. It's too late to talk strategy when you're in the middle of these fights. You have to have your strategy going into these fights, and so we have to demand of these politicians, not just to say that you support her, you support these policies, but to tell us what's your strategy for actually getting these things done. And Kshama Sawant, she understands that. She has been, and she has come out on Twitter. She has been dragging AOC, not dragging. I mean, she's doing it in a really diplomatic, smart way. She's a very astute politician, and is able to push these socialist ideas. She talked about employing a socialist strategy to get the $15 minimum wage passed initially in Seattle, and so I think that we need to have more folks like that in power. I'm worried. I feel good about Nina Turner. I think that she could be solid, but I want to hear more strategy from her, because honestly, I did not. We can pull this back up, and I'll try to find clips of, and we can talk about this another time. But Nina Turner, in the Force the Vote movement, she was not willing to come out strongly and say that she would buck the establishment in fighting for the Force the Vote campaign. She said that she would defer to her colleagues in Congress, like AOC and these other folks. And I fear that if she's willing to defer to them, that is going, she'll end up getting pulled into that strategy. I know that she is more likely than any of these people to be able to fight. She's been pushing back against the establishment her entire career, essentially. So I have hope. I hold out hope for Nina Turner still, but nobody is in a league with Kshama Sawant, as far as I'm concerned at this point. She is in a league. She's in a league of her own. So X says, on the David Feldman versus Kshama Sawant debate, X says, not $15 minimum wage, more of a broader strategy for progressives nationwide. That is awesome, and I'm definitely going to watch that, and hopefully I'll bring you. I'll put together my favorite clips, and we'll talk about we'll talk about that on the show. I'll try to pull up some clips, and I'll watch through it and pull up some favorite stuff. X says, I woke up in the middle of this discussion, so maybe they covered it. So cool. So I'll check that out, because I really do think that she has the right strategy, and I want to look more into Socialist Alternative, because they seem to have the correct strategy as well behind them. And I was talking about running for office this year, potentially like getting ready to try to run for public office, and it just really shaking me. But if I wouldn't do it until I was on the level of a Kshama Sawant, and that I was ready to do what Kshama Sawant is doing, and having a real clear strategy laid out, not just to believe in these policies anymore. That's not good enough for me anymore. So American Social Democracy, shout out to American Social Democracy. Check out their YouTube channel as well. They are fighting for social democracy, and I think that we have to build a unified coalition, and we have to do coalition building, and we should absolutely be working with social democrats as socialists. We can absolutely work with them on the issues that matter to us, and hopefully pull them over to the left to help them, drag them over to our side, and say, we have to be anti-capitalist to our core, because a lot of the things that I think that social democrats truly want and believe in and will fight for, I think that it's going to be nearly impossible under a capitalist system, and that's sort of where social democrats and socialists split. We believe in, as socialists, worker control over the means of production, democratic workplaces, one worker, one vote on all major decisions, and it has to be that we have to democratize our economy, essentially. Anywho, American Social Democracy, check out their work, check out their YouTube channel. Says, we need Bernie Sanders and the squad to either do better, or we need to create an independent labor party. Yeah, like this is what, and I think this is what the Socialist Alternative is sort of working on, is trying to actually build a political party, political movement that is anti-capitalist, is socialist inherently, and is not, this like not trying to play this game of like taking over the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party it's built up. It's a machine. And it's been built to crush progressives, and it's built to chew these people up and spit them out, and to not allow people to push progressive legislation through. And so trying to reform it just seems like a failing strategy at this point, and something that might be a lost hope. I hope we can, because it's what we have in power right now. It's what we have to work with, but we might need to start to employ a different strategy, and maybe starting more locally is where we have to look to as well. Cryptician says the Democrats and their lobbyists harass the heck out of every progressive who gains an office through their party. They utterly detest it. Yeah, absolutely. They fight against progressives harder than they fight against fascists, essentially, and right wingers. So they are willing to fight progressives a lot harder than they fight against the right wing. So Cryptician says progressives wind up getting intimidated and harassed into inaction, silence, and submission. Absolutely, 100%. This is how it works. You get in there and they just constantly beat them down and tell them and limit their ideas of what's possible and what they're capable of doing, until they actually start to believe that incremental change is the only way that we can get anything done in this country. And that's absolutely false, and not the way that change has happened, historically. So Corey Saylor says, I feel like the squad just has a random platitude generator doing all their tweets for them. Like, dude, seriously, Corey, like, I've been calling them out every time. I wish I'm sorry I didn't pull up more of them, but they have been just platitude after platitude. I called Rokana out on it. I called Jamal Bowman out on it. It's been nothing but platitudes. They're saying, oh, people deserve a $15 minimum wage. Not, no person should work 40 hours a week and live in poverty. You can say that as much as you want. It's empty platitudes if you're not backing that up with a serious strategy. You are the ones in power. You are the ones that have the ability. There are 435 people in Congress, all right? There's just a handful of people in this country that have the ability to actually change this legislation. And honestly, right now, it only takes six of those people, okay? If 6 of those progressives are willing to stand up and to have some political courage and to fight on this, to actually fight for the $15, it only takes 6 of them. So there are 6 people in this country with all the power to actually change people's lives. And the thing about all these other policies that the Democrats have put into this COVID relief bill, they're all temporary. Everything is temporary, all right? Everything major is temporary. $1,400 one-time payment, the $3,000 child tax credit, temporary. All of these things are just temporary reforms, right? The $15 minimum wage is permanent. There's never been a situation where the minimum wage has been increased and then decreased again. Okay, there's no instance of that happening anywhere ever. All right, once a minimum wage is increased, it is wildly popular, and no politician, it is political suicide to try to decrease the minimum wage. All right, you never hear about that happening. So minimum wage increases are permanent. And so yes, just totally agree with you on that, Corey, that they've been doing nothing but just spouting these empty platitudes on their social media. Oh, we all deserve it. Okay, well, tell us what you're going to do. You're the people that are in power. We put you there not to tell us that we all agree. We know that we deserve these. We know that, healthcare is a human right and all these things. It's not enough to just say it any longer. You have to back it up with action. All right. And serious, bold action, because we're talking about bold change that needs to happen. It requires bold actions to be taken. It requires some political courage, and they're not showing it. I'm sorry. I respect these people as what they try to do and their good intentions. I believe they have good intentions. I do not think that they have a serious strategy, a winning strategy behind them. And I do not believe they have the political courage for this moment, sadly. So we need to do better. Corey Saylor says, the entire Nevada Dem infrastructure just quit because Bernie types won every seat. Wow, that's wild. Yeah. They also X says they also transferred the $450,000 budget to a campaign fund for an establishment Democrat, is what I believe I heard. So I don't know, what's that $450,000 budget to a campaign fund for? Oh, is that like in Amazon did that in Seattle against Kshama Sawant? That would be wild. So wouldn't be surprised there at all whatsoever. So Corey Saylor says progressives need to be willing to shoot the hostage. Yeah, and i.e. they need to be willing to hold up a must-pass bill to get anything done. And that's the thing. if they do this, it won't even be them holding up the bill. But I absolutely 100% agree with you. They must be willing to. They must be willing to and state clearly that they are willing to do that. That's at all, because let me just make this part clear, because Corey Saylor makes a great point here. This is a must-pass bill, all right? And when they say must-pass bill, all right, it means Joe Biden is the one who must pass it, okay? And the Democratic Party must pass this bill, or else they will be seen as utter failures and will get completely, utterly destroyed in the midterms and in the 2024 presidential election, right? And the thing is, they don't want to do anything with their power, but they want to hold on to power. They want to maintain power. They would like to have a split Congress, right? That would be their ideal situation, so that they have a built-in excuse of why they can't get anything done. But they want control over either the Senate or the House of Representatives or the White House, right? They need control over one of those bodies in order to be able to pretend and do the performative things that they need to be able to do in order to act like they're trying something and to hold that much power, right? So they want to maintain power, maintain all their seats, all the establishment seats in power, right? And to be able to keep getting more of those establishment corporate types reelected, right? So they in order to do that, they need to give the appearance that they're winning on something. And so this is what is considered a must-pass bill. And this is a special kind of must-pass bill because it's a must-pass bill that is going to get 0 votes from Republicans. Not a single Republican is going to vote for this bill, no matter what is in it. So it's a must-pass bill that requires the support of all the Democrats, essentially, all but 5. If they can lose 5 Democrats in this fight. If they lose more than 5 Democrats, if they lose a 6th Democrat if 6 Democrats vote against it, it cannot pass, right, in the House. So all they need is 6 people on a must-pass bill. And the thing about this is that because it's must-pass, it will pass, right? It is going to pass. This bill is going to get done, and it will get done in a timely fashion. They're not going to risk the political damage of waiting until this thing goes well beyond the expiration of the unemployment, plus up the $300 a week expires on March 14th. They have that as the deadline in their mind. They've waited till this long to try to use that as an excuse and to try to threaten people with that and threaten working and poor people with that. And so we have to be willing to hold out on this and to say, no. They are the ones that are holding it up. Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, Chuck Schumer, they are the ones that are holding this up because they refuse to put in popular legislation that the people demand. This is what the people want in this bill. The people deserve to get what they're asking for. And so they should absolutely, they must be willing to reject this bill under any circumstance where a $15 minimum wage is not included as a part of it. They must be willing to vote against it. And if they're not willing to do that, they will not win. They cannot win. And they will not win on this issue. But more importantly, they will not win on any issue, because that is what must be done. It must be a must pass bill, which means and that's the other point of this, is that in a must pass bill, those must pass bills are always, the only way you have a must pass bill is if there's some pain, the people are feeling pain behind it. That's why they must pass it, because people are hurting. And so they must pass it because they know that if you don't help people when they're hurting, they won't give you their vote next time around. That's all they care about, is getting your vote. They don't care about anything for the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. All they care about is getting your vote. They don't care about anything about you after that. Point blank, period. Right. So we have to be able to use that and have to be willing to withhold our vote on these things, right, to get this done. All right. So X says the Nevada Dems. Thanks for clarifying, X. So that was the Nevada Dems that are, transferred the $450,000 budget to a campaign fund for an establishment Democrat. So that's wild. I'll look more into that and check that out. That's a really wild story there, that they're trying to do that. So Cryptician says, I am frankly very surprised that a lot of people have not reached the more than obvious conclusion that no progressive policies have any chance of being successful through the Democratic Party. Yeah, I mean, I sadly, shame on me. I was one of those folks for a long time that was holding out that hope and believed, let's board the ship. It's a 2-party system. We're going to have to take over one of the 2 parties is the only way that we're going to be able to get this done. And I fell into that trap, and I'm ashamed, ashamed of myself for being so wrong on it. I believed in these people and that it was that the system that was broken was the way that they were being funded, right? We thought, oh, they're being bought off by these corporations, and that's why they're not able to effectively, enact legislation. That is true. I still believe that to be true. But the reality is that, just getting people in there that aren't bought off in that way, it isn't enough, right? These people have to go in with a real strong strategy of being willing and recognizing that the Democratic Party is not our friends. They are not friends of the people. They have abandoned the working class, and we cannot let them, frame the narrative for us around these issues to act as if the progressives are the ones that are, harming the people by trying to help them. They're the only ones that are out here actually trying to help it, supposedly. And but you're absolutely right that Cryptician, that I no longer believe that the Democratic Party is a vehicle for progressive change in this country. Sadly, I just do not believe. I think that we are going to have to build outside structures. A third party, is one option. Can it work in this two-party system that has been we're so ingrained within? I don't know. I think that continuing to fight under the Democratic Party with the strategy that we're doing is not going to work, and we cannot continue forward with that losing strategy. That's for sure. So Cryptician continues on. They say the best and only way to push our agenda is to have our own center and base of power and organization, which means our own party, and the effort has already been started with the People's Party. So I've talked about the People's Party here, and I will, continue to do what I can to try to, say I'm still trying to figure out if the People's Party is the right, is the right movement as well, because sadly I worry that it's the same, that people can fall victim into the same things. I do think that, okay, it's great that inherently they will be, and so there's a reason why I'll sort of, I think that I will, I'll try to be, I'm trying to be as fair as I can here, because as a socialist, I can't really get behind the People's Party, sadly, because I've seen the results of people's parties around the world, right? And even the People's Party themselves, Cryptician, just to push back on you a little bit here, the People's Party themselves have used a couple, they cited a few examples of people's parties around the world that they're using as an example, like the, I think it's called the Podemos Party they cited, and the Syriza Party in Greece they cited. And unfortunately, if you look at the history of those people's parties movements, those movements have also been co-opted into the austerity neoliberal politics of those countries. So the People's Party movement, when you start and you start out with the strategies that they're deploying here as a People's Party, saying we're going to do this really big tent People's Party initiative where we'll try to pull in people from the right and the in the left and the center, and trying to to pull all these ideas together. We'll agree on a set of policy issues, without really telling me. I think that the People's Party will have the ability to push back against the Democratic Party. They're not going to go in there as they're not the Democratic Party, and they're not going to go in there. And I would hope they're not going to go in there and play nice with the Democratic Party, and that they will be willing to call them out and to buck the establishment. Unfortunately, if you look at the history of people's parties around the world, they simply have not been effective because of this Big Tent strategy, the lack of a cohesive, I think they have a coherent strategy. I don't think they have a cohesive strategy because it's disjointed, because they want to try to bring in people from too many different groups, saying, oh, this is how we gotta, build a larger, a coalition here. I think that historically it's been proven that movements like that have failed around the world as well, because they also are able to be co-opted into the sort of neoliberal establishment mindset of thinking. Once they are able to get into power, the ways that they are able to get to power, the movements end up being co-opted. So I will still, I've done pieces on the People's Party. I was originally a member of the People's Party, like supporting them, contributing, donating. I saw some socialist analysis of the People's Party, and it honestly, I think the World Socialist website, they as well as socialist, I'm spacing on the name right now. There's another socialist media outlet that has covered really in depth in their conversations with the People's Party and their concerns about why they are, why they don't believe the People's Party is going to be able to build a winning strategy, unfortunately. And as a socialist, I'm still trying to understand and better understand before I go all in on something, because I'm really, this is what unfortunately the Democratic Party has done, is make a lot of us question our own selves and our own strategies. And I worry that I don't want to get into another movement for the next 4 years that turns out to be another failed movement, or the next 10 years that turns out to be another failed strategy, failed movement. So I'm looking into the socialist alternative. I am looking at the People's Party. We will continue to cover the People's Party, and at least support them nominally for now. Like I don't have any other better option. I don't trust the Democratic Party. That's for damn sure. But I think that it's more about having a strategy of being willing and knowing that you're going to fight against the Democratic Party in this way. And I think that the People's Party is capable of doing that. So to that, Cryptician, I do agree. And we have, covered the People's Party on the show, and we'll continue to try to bring you information about that and to be as supportive as we can and to try to see if it's the right strategy. I don't want to sound like I'm against them. I'm not against them. And I hope them the best. Like, I want them to succeed. I want to see the Democratic Party crumble. Like, I want to see the Republican Party crumble too, but I definitely want to see like the Democratic Party as it is today. I don't want to see it existing in this form. And if the People's Party is the way to get that done and to overcome these obstacles and these hurdles of the Democratic Party, then I will absolutely 100% get behind that. For right now, as a socialist and somebody that really, is like just questioning the strategy right now of these organizations, I'm still, the jury's out for me on the People's Party, and I'm still sort of figuring that out. And I will continue to try to figure that out here and together. And I hope that we all, have these discussions and talk about it. And I hope that by, just because someone says that they're not, supporting the same things, as if we're not all on the same page all the time, I think that's okay. We got to have these discussions out and, as quickly as we can, urgently as we can, to try to get to a point that we can all get together, build some real solidarity and push for real change in this country by whatever means necessary. So, keep on, if you believe in the People's Party, keep pushing it and keep, and keep joining these streams and pushing that narrative. And, if you want to join the show sometime, we'll have you on. I have a note on my whiteboard right here that says interview someone from People's Party. So, I would like to get someone from the People's Party on and have these discussions out, because I don't think it's good enough to just I don't want to just tear them down or anything like that. I want to have these conversations out and see if they can convince people and are serious and have a strategy, a coherent, cohesive strategy behind them that is actually going to get these things to succeed. So Corey Saylor says HR1 just made third party a lot harder. So, and this was crazy because I did a guest appearance on the Vanguard last night, and we talked about this actually because Ryan Grimm was out here like smearing the Green Party because of because their vote, their stance on HR1. But the thing about HR1 that, good news about HR1 is that it's not likely to pass through the Senate, right? So the Senate, you got to get 60 votes in the Senate for these standalone bills. The only way that they pass is if you get 60 votes. You need, because of the filibuster, unless the Democrats get rid of the filibuster. And I'm going to do a whole show on why I think it is the wrong strategy to ask the Democrats to get rid of the filibuster. They will do nothing. If they get rid of the filibuster, Democrats, we're doing budget reconciliation right now. All you need is 50 Democratic votes. I cannot believe that there are people sitting there arguing and encouraging the Democrats to get rid of the filibuster when they just proved to us that if they only need 50 votes to pass progressive legislation still will not pass. So the idea that, all we need to do, I saw Ilhan Omar like, we just need to get rid of the filibuster, it's blocking all this legislation. No, the fuck, it isn't blocking this. It hasn't been blocking this. So what, you can't blame the filibuster on this. We're using budget reconciliation. We're not going to get a single Republican vote, and you still couldn't pass progressive legislation. So don't dare tell me that, the filibuster is what's standing in the way of legalizing cannabis. No, the Democrats, you have 50 of you. If you want to do this, you can do this. All right. Stop pretending. All right. You could have done this as part of these bills. Like, stop kidding yourselves. All right. So the Democrats getting rid of the filibuster, all that will do is the Republicans can't really do it. It's harder to do it with the Republicans, whatever. They don't, they're going to have a tougher time doing it. They're going to have to control, in order to get rid of the filibuster. I believe you have to have essentially all control of all three houses. You at least have to control the Senate and the House and the Senate. I believe, to get rid of the filibuster. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong here. But the Republicans are going to be shy about doing it as well. But I don't put it past them or whatever. They could eventually do it. But with the Republicans, they'll actually use it to do really destructive things to the working class. They will use the lack of a filibuster, just like they did with the judges. Mitch McConnell, he got rid of the filibuster for judicial appointments, and they ran rampant with that. What are the Democrats doing for filling, judiciary with progressives. Nothing. You know, they when Republicans are in power, they force the country right. When Democrats are in power, they do nothing, and the end result of that is that the country continues to shift right. So I don't believe that ending a filibuster is going to allow legislation to be passed, because the Democrats suck and they're not going to do anything, even if it's just 50 of them, right? Even if they have a majority, they're not going to get it done, right? It's not going to happen. So what if they knew the filibuster? If they get rid of the filibuster, all they're going to do, they'll get nothing done with it, some weak little legislation done at best, and then the Republicans will get into power and they will just trounce, you know, the Democratic Party and the working class with their legislation that they'll enact. I truly believe that because of the failure of the $15 minimum wage passing in this bill, I truly believe, hear me now, quote me later, that in 2022 the Democrats are going to lose the Senate and the House, and that by 2024 they will lose the White House, and we will have total control over the executive, legislative, and judiciary branch by Republicans, right? And then, you know, Lord help us all right, at that point, all right? So, you know, the filibuster, we'll have to see, you know, what happens there, and if they get rid of the filibuster. But I think it's really dangerous for them to do it, because I don't think they're going to use it for any good, but I think the Republicans will use it for plenty of bad stuff. So, HR 1 passed through the House. It hasn't passed through the Senate, and it's honestly highly unlikely to pass through the Senate. All these bills that you see passing through the House, highly unlikely to pass through the Senate, because they're standalone bills and require at least 10 Republicans to vote in favor of, and which 10 Republicans are voting to expand voting rights of any form, right? And just to clarify, it makes it harder for third parties, because it increases the funding thresholds that you need to get in order to receive public funding. So it just makes it harder for third parties. So it's another move by, you know, and these Democrats are okay. They claim to be supporting democracy, but how can you say you support democracy and then turn around and make it harder for third parties to come in and to have a say in the fight, right? So Cryptician says, I don't think HR 1 will pass, but I could be wrong. I agree with you, Cryptician. I think it's nearly, I think there's like a 1% chance that HR 1 passes. Honestly, I don't think that it's going to pass at all. Corey Saylor says, to be fair, budget reconciliation only counts if it's relevant to the budget. Absolutely. That is a good point for sure. And so that does impact certain legislation that people can argue is not germane to the budget. So Corey Saylor is 100% correct about that. And I should clarify that, but great point about that. It does have to be, it does have to be relevant to the budget, but there is a good argument to be made about most legislation that matters being relevant to the budget, right? Like Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage, things like legalizing marijuana, that's cannabis, legalizing cannabis, that's a little bit harder to try to say it, fits under the budget reconciliation, but you can make arguments that by legalizing drugs, if we did, and I think we should be legalizing all drugs, not just, I don't believe in just legalizing cannabis. I believe in total drug legalization. I believe in at least decriminalizing, sex work. But if you legalize drugs, right, then you can make an argument, I think, that the tax revenue generated from that, right, that will increase tax revenues to the U.S. government, right? You're going to be able to tax sales tax, right? Corporate taxes from the industry. So I do believe that there's a budget argument to be made about most legislation that people care about. But things like voting rights, that you're not going to be able to make a budget argument about. And for that, you would need to get rid of the filibuster. And I would support getting rid of the filibuster. I would support that if I thought the Democrats weren't cowards, right? Weren't total cowards and would do nothing with it. I would support getting rid of the filibuster, but I just don't, because of who the Democratic Party is. Corey Saylor says, but Dems have demonstrated they won't use that tool anyway. They love an excuse to not do anything. Yeah, you're right. As much as we're saying this, the Dems are so weak. They won't even get rid of the filibuster. They're talking about it and they're already backtracking on it. They first, when Biden was going in, he was saying he was willing to do it. Elizabeth Warren was supporting it, and I think she still supports it. But when they actually get to power, I don't think that they're really serious about it. And so I don't expect to see it happen. Cryptician says, if not the People's Party, then why don't progressives use the same strategy of taking over the Democratic Party and use that strategy to take over a party that already represents us, like the Green Party? Yeah, I could see that happening. I think the Green Party is unfortunately, it just shows that it's so beat down. I feel like you're better off with the People's Party in that sense, because the Green Party, I just feel like it's got a brand that sort of people are they feel like it's, oh, those are just like tree hugging, hippies, and they sort of hear Green Party and they don't really, it doesn't resonate with people. And so I think that it's because they're already established and they're a third party. I do think that if you're going to take over a party, better to take over, the Democratic Party. If you're going to take over a party, try to take over one of the two major parties. But I think there are other ways that we can sort of have maybe an inside outside strategy, let these people go over and do that, waste that time over there trying to reform the Democratic Party. We start to push with our own party, the People's Party, or whatever it has to be, a socialist party. I want to see a real socialist party, rise up in this country. And I will certainly get behind that, a serious the socialist alternative. I'm really interested in looking more into what they're doing. But I think this is an interesting debate to have. And I think that this is the debate, really, this is what we're going to be deciding on the left moving forward in these different left spaces is, what is our strategy going to be? Are we going to go all in behind the People's Party? We cannot afford to fail the people again, right? So whatever we do, we gotta really try to make this next thing that we push for the right thing. It's got to be a winning strategy that we get behind. So I would be interested to see. I would love to talk to Kshama Sawant about how she feels about the People's Party and that movement. And we definitely, we will continue to cover the People's Party. We'll try to bring Nick Brana and other folks from the People's Party on and to have these discussions out with them and to push back on these issues and try to hear more about that. So please look forward to that, look out for that, and we will try to make that happen. So yeah, great point though. I totally agree. Cryptician says we need some kind of organization and base of power to have a vehicle for political power and influence. Otherwise, we are just a bunch of voices making criticisms and protests and nothing more. And I totally agree there. I think that another place that we can fight in the organization and base of power that we can have is in the labor movement, right? Like that's where our power really is, right? Like workers, that's where we have power, right? And I know not everybody's a worker. Some people, you might be disabled, but I think by and large, most people, masses of people, the majority of people are workers, working class people. And I do think that we can build a base of power through the labor movement. And I think that's a serious place that we have to really start to look to, and then use our power in the labor movement to influence these political movements. But I absolutely agree that we need some kind of organization, some kind of base of power, to serve as a vehicle for political power, right? And I think that having a political party as well is important. And I'm fine with it being the People's Party if that is going to be the functional strategy. I'm not 100% sold on it yet. I was very enthusiastic and excited about it when they first announced, but the more that I've, sort of criticisms of it that I've read from socialist, perspectives have caused me to question. And just looking at the history of people's movements around people's parties around the world, I think that it is something that we shouldn't just pretend like we're in a vacuum and like we're in a bubble and these things haven't been tried elsewhere, and try to look to those. It's not always like, oh, somebody else tried it and it failed, so we won't try it at all. But we should at least use that to inform our strategy, try to improve that strategy and make sure that we don't fall into the same pitfalls that those movements did. So, but I totally agree with you 100%, Cryptician, that we need to have some sort of organization and a base of power. And I think that I think we should look to the labor movement as to be a part of that. It must be, I believe the labor movement must be a part of that, and that we need to strengthen our labor movement in this country, start to organize. Look to Bessemer, Alabama right now with that union push in Alabama for Amazon workers. That is, I've done multiple stories on it already. I think that it is something that we all need to set our sights on and sort of set, hopefully that will cause ripple effects in the labor movement around the country as well. So I do think that we can build that organization base of power, not just through a political party and just through electoral politics. I think that we also need to build it through a labor movement. And of course, here at Radical Democracy, what the real push that we fight for here is to build, workers deserve to have, control over the means of productions. They are the one that workers produce the value in our economy. They absolutely should control the surplus of their labor. We need democratic workplaces. If we believe in democracy in this country, we want to see democracy in our political system. Look at this. This is not democracy. A majority of people support $15 minimum wage. We're not getting a $15 minimum wage. That's not democracy, right? If we want to see democracy happen in our political system, we got to build democracy in our economic system first. And that means, building democratic workplaces, democratic enterprises, worker self-directed enterprises, one worker, one vote on all major decisions, for a business. And that's the way that we're going to build up, a new type of democratic institution in the wake of all these failing institutions. And so I believe that's the other key fundamental, I believe that's a fundamental change we must make to our economic system in order to ensure that we actually get some true democratic control over our political system. So we have to start there by building workplace democracy, build democracy in our housing, and elsewhere in our communications, and anything that we consider, any institution that we consider a critical, the commanding heights of society, right? All of the commanding heights of society should be controlled by the people, right? And so we need to return the power back to the people through labor movements, through workplace democracy movement, and then and then ultimately through building a serious political party and political movement. So yeah, I totally agree with you there, Cryptician. Great point. Please, to anyone just joining, hasn't done so already, do us a favor, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, share this out. I think we had a great conversation here tonight. I really appreciate everyone for the comments. We've had some really awesome comments. Shout out to everyone for commenting and for engaging on this. This is a pivotal moment on the left, and I think that we're all grappling with these issues and trying to figure out what the best way forward is for our movement and for the masses of people to actually get what they deserve. And I think that we're all trying to fight for that. And so we got to fight together. We got to start to build some better, more democratic, more collective media organizations, and that's something that I'm going to start to look into and start to figure out how I can be a part of that as well. And I hope to do that along with all of our community and bringing the community and the voices of the community into these conversations more. And so I absolutely am grateful for everyone in the community that joins us for these discussions. Y'all are the folks that are just by being here, it shows, you care about this stuff. You want this stuff to change, and you're trying to do everything that you can to make it change. And so I'm deeply grateful for you, spending this time with us and for fighting this fight with us. So Cryptician says, radical democracy, so great to have your kind of voice and energy and intelligence out there. Thank you so much, Cryptician. That means so much. And I am just humbled by that and really deeply appreciate it. And of course, it's not just me. I'm here. I'm helped. I got my super producer Tammy over there in the background, and doing great things in the chat as well. And our community that has built us up, that supports us, that funds us. We couldn't do this without that support from the community. So it's certainly not just me. And it's a people power movement, and the people are behind this. And we want to build workplace democracy here at Radical Democracy. We are building a democratic workplace here. So we absolutely appreciate that sort of those kind words. So Cryptician says, yes, Kamali, you are a great voice. Loved you on the Vanguard the other day and look forward to more from you, and hope more people find you and get tuned into this channel. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that we're able to start to, cross-pollinate with in our different communities. And we gotta, this is how we're going to get everybody together, fighting and pushing in the same direction. Right. So thank you so much, Cryptician, for watching. The Vanguard, they're great and they're awesome. We've had them on the show multiple times, plan to have them on again soon. And I had a blast, just had a great time, had a great discussion with them last night. You guys should check that out. If you haven't already seen the discussion we had a really, really great discussion. So definitely check it out and check out their work, the Vanguard on YouTube. They're doing some really awesome work. They have amazing interviews that they do. I'd like to start to do more interviews, have more guests on the show here. So we're going to start to work that in as best we can. And so thank you so much to Cryptician for joining for joining this community, for engaging in these conversations, these discussions, and we will just keep doing this. And big shout out, massive shout out. Actually, sorry for not doing this at the top. Huge shout out, and I'll do this at the top of the next show. I should have done this. I missed multiple opportunities here. I'm so sorry. Shout out to our newest Patreon comrades, Janet S and Megan M. Shout out to both of you. Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you so much, Megan. We deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate that. Your support is vital, absolutely vital to keeping this going. If it's just $1, a dollar matters so much. It's a statement. It's not just the dollar. The dollar matters. Trust me, that dollar matters to us. But it's more than just the dollar. It's also the statement that you make to say that you support this, that you want to see this keep going. But the funding is crucial. This is what I want to do full time, and once unemployment runs out and all that sort of stuff, I'm gonna have to go back to working full time, and we won't be able to do this to the same capacity. So we're trying to get to that point of having enough funding coming in before it hits that point. And that's why, these fights for things like unemployment and these fights, it affects us directly. It's not just that we're saying this, this affects all of us. And so we just want to shout out our newest Patreon patrons, because you give us you enable us to do this. We're not just our Patreon patrons, of course, but also our coffee, supporters, folks that are on coffee. You can support us either place, ko-fi.com/radical democracy. That gets us the money a little bit more directly. They take a little less of the cut than Patreon. So it's a little bit more of a direct way to get us the money. But you can also support us if you're already on Patreon. Definitely just use it there. If it's easier for you, do whatever's easier for you. And you can support us on Patreon as well, patreon.com/radical democracy. So just huge shout out to Janet and Megan for their support. We appreciate you so deeply. Thank you so much. And hopefully we will make it well worth your contribution. So appreciate that. And please, if anyone else can afford to do so, and only if you can afford to do so. These are trying times. Like, look at the situation we're under. People are hurting. Totally understand if you can't afford to do it. Do not burden yourself financially any further than you already are if you can't afford to do it. But if you can afford even $1 a month to support the show, please support the show on Coffee or on Patreon. You can find links in the description box below to both of those. So thank you to everyone who hung around and joined us for this discussion. Shout out to all of our supporters, everyone that supports us already, and everyone that can, if you can't afford to support and you just share it out, or you hit the like button, or you subscribe, that's supporting us as well, and that's a huge amount of support from you as well. So we appreciate that very deeply. And hopefully, share this out, hit that share button, and share this out, because I think that these are critical discussions that we're having here. Engaging with the community, and these are important discussions that I'm hoping that more people can start to see this. So thank you so much to everyone for joining today and for helping out with that. We got to continue this fight for 15. We'll see what they do tomorrow. We'll try to cover it, as they do this, as they cast their votes, and see what happens from here on out. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us. I think we're gonna sign off at this point. Okay, so thanks to everyone who commented and joined today. I think that's that.